Okay, so we're gonna make a really simple tomato sauce. I'm gonna turn it into a meat sauce, but you don't have to. So what you're gonna need is fresh tomatoes. You're gonna need your onions, mushrooms, ground beef, and a pepper is optional. Okay, so get started. Just chop up your onions. I don't actually measure exactly how many onions I use. I don't really measure how much of anything I use. Whatever you got, can make it work. There we have our chopped onions. Okay, time to move on to the mushrooms. Okay, now when it comes to the mushrooms, there are two kinds of people out there, and you know who you are. There are mushroom snobs and non-mushroom snobs. How do you know which one you are? You are a mushroom snob if you find yourself doing this, taking off the stem and chucking it. That would make you a mushroom snob. I'm not a mushroom snob. I think the stems are just fine. So I slice up the whole thing, even these little stems. Yes, they could be a little bit more chewy than the rest of the mushroom. There's no question. I'm not going to argue that point. It is true. However, I don't mind it. If you do mind it, there's no judgment here. You can get rid of the stems. I just think it's kind of wasteful. May as well keep the whole mushroom in the sauce. And now I am going to turn my slice into a rough chop. Whatever you like is fine. Okay, now the pepper. There are many opinions out there on the best way to remove the seeds from a pepper. I don't know that there's one best method, but I like this method. Cut it really close to the top so you get a thin slice. This is what comes off. And then you can get your fingers in here and just pull out the seeds in one chunk. And then we just cut it up. Now it's time to score our tomatoes to get them ready for blanching. Blanching is when we boil them for just a couple of quick minutes to get the skin easy to come up. So each of these is going to get a little square cut, just like that. Okay, now we're done the prep. It is time to start cooking. What I have here is some water that's coming to a boil, so I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in it. What I have here is an ice bath next to the water. If you're wondering if that bowl is as big as it looks, the answer is yes. It is an irresponsibly big bowl. I don't know why I own a bowl this big. Compared to my hand, you can see that this is a ridiculously large bowl. You can use any bowl you have on hand. So tomatoes go in. There's that little score that each one has. So I'm going to do just a few at a time to keep the water nice and hot, because every time we put tomatoes in, it cools the water a little bit. So just give them a minute or so. What's happening now, we're not cooking the tomatoes. That's going to come later. We're going to be cooking these tomatoes for a very long time, in fact. But right now, we're just loosening the skin to make it easier to peel. So you know it's time to take them out when you can see that the skin is starting to loosen. Not just yet. I'm going to keep them in there for a little bit. And there you go. That's your cue. You can see the skin is starting to loosen. So we plop them right into the ice bath, and this stops the cooking. This is called shocking. It stops the cooking and it makes the skin even easier to get off. So while they're in the ice bath, I'm going to put a few more tomatoes in the boiling water as I start to peel the tomatoes. And you'll see it comes off really easily now. Just peel it right off. It takes just seconds. And right off camera, I'm going to pop this into a blender. You don't actually need a blender. You can just cut them up if you wish. But I find a blender or food processor makes it go quick, and it gives a nice texture to the sauce. Skin's coming off nice and easy, which pleases me. You ever have the experience of trying to peel a hard-boiled egg and it won't peel? So that doesn't really happen with tomatoes. At least it's never happened to me. But I can imagine if it did happen, it would make me unhappy, possibly make me moody and depressed. And there's our tomato skins. They came off super easy. If anybody has any ideas of what I could do with these, go ahead and put the ideas in the comments. Got to say, I'm not expecting too many comments because I don't actually have any subscribers at the time that I'm making this. But who knows? We'll see how it goes. All right, and it just so happens that the tomatoes are the perfect amount to fill the blender. I wasn't planning that, but it worked out. Why not? Let's just give this a quick mix here. That's good. I don't mind if it's a little chunky. Okay, tomatoes are ready to go. So now it's time for the onions, starting with a hot ceramic coated pot. Just going to add some olive oil into it. Probably a couple ounces. I don't know exactly how much. It's probably a good start. I just want to give it the sputter test. Yep, sizzle. So in the onions go. So I'm going to move on and add the beef at this point. You might be asking yourself at this point, because I know I would, where's the garlic? You didn't put any garlic. And the truth is, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And I like it both ways. I like it when it has garlic, and I like it when it doesn't have garlic. So you really can't go wrong putting garlic, that's for sure. But strictly speaking, depending on who you ask, if you ask me, you don't have to put it every time. Now it's time to put everything together. Give this a quick stir. And of course, our beautiful, fresh, pureed tomato. Look at that color. Look how bright and fresh that is. That is amazing. Now, in fact, how long you cook it is entirely up to you. The less you cook it, the more of that bright, fresh flavor you're going to have. Today, I'm going for a really robust, rich, deep tomato flavor. So I'm actually going to cook this for about 24 hours. So you might want to get a book. Actually, what I can do is I can just speed up the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this to a simmer now. And because of the magic of video, why don't we all count down together how this is going to look in a day? Ready? Join me. 5, 4, say it out loud. 3, 2, and 1.